We bring in now a Washington insider who helped to found the D.C. office of international law firm Gibson, Dunn Crutcher. John Olson is with us now. He is a self-described centrist Democrat. He specializes in advising boards on corporate governance, defending companies and government investigation and securities law. John Olson joining us from Washington, D.C. John, thanks so much for joining us on this election day. We're very glad to have you. I want to pick up on the CEO of Evercore's comment there about gridlock. The fact that it is bad for business. We've had some pretty big voices saying it's bad. It would be bad for the economy. What do you make of the idea that it could be bad for business?
Well, I say amen to the CEO of Evercore's comments of a few moments ago. I couldn't agree more. We centrists are feeling really squeezed these days, and there is a real danger, I think, that this Republican tsunami, which is certainly going to sweep the House, it seems, and perhaps even the Senate, is going to create some real problems for the business community, because it could create not just gridlock, but a period of unpredictability and instability. And business does not like an environment of unpredictability and instability.
So, John, would the worst consequence then be tone, or is there actual policy that you see coming down the pipeline that would be damaging?
I think both. I think the tone of the Tea Party movement, the Sarah Palin wing of the Republican Party, is one of going back to a mythological past which probably never existed, going back to Fortress America, worrying about putting up barriers instead of opening ourselves to communication with the rest of the world. I don't know what that means, because I don't think they've figured out what that means for things like trade policy, what it means for international relations. But it certainly creates a situation of uncertainty, which is something that makes it difficult to make and implement business plans.
John, to take the flip side of that argument, a lot of the Tea Party strength that pundits tell us is because they seem to be able to channel people's frustration with big government spending, with the fact that unemployment is so high. Have Democrats failed so far? In other words, for the 2 years that they've had control, how would you rate their leadership?
I'd give it about a 3 out of 10. I think the president was a great campaigner. He has not yet proven himself to be an able leader. He's actually gotten some major legislation through the Congress, as you know, but he's done it at considerable cost. And whether it made sense to start with health care, for example, and to do it the way it was done, it sort of became a potpourri for anybody to put any idea in they wanted to. It certainly bears re-examination. This is going to be a wake-up call for the president and his team. I hope that they will take the call very seriously and not sulk and not complain, but instead understand that the time has come to move to the center, and to do so visibly, and to work with moderates in both parties to try to develop policies which will avoid gridlock and which will address the very serious problems we have. You mentioned unemployment and you mentioned spending. Well, unfortunately, one of the ways to deal with unemployment is to stimulate the economy, which has been done both by the last and the current administration.
John,
that creates deficits.
It certainly does, and there's a lot of people who say that we need to address that at the same time as create jobs, which is not an easy effect to pull off. Is health care the #1 thing that's hurt the Democrats? You mentioned it. I want to come back to it, even more so than, let's say, financial reform.
Yeah, I think financial reform for most voters is quite complex, and there's very little love for Wall Street or for big business among the Tea Party movement and others who are going to be the engine of energy in the current election cycle. So I think there is not, I think, a feeling that it was bad to crack down, and although the financial regulation bill is complicated, it's got its problems, there's much more concern, I think, among the popular voter with health care and with the general tone of, gee, they're not listening to us, they don't understand us, they don't hear us. Now, some of that, of course, is promoted by a very effective campaign by a number of interest groups and by the Republican Party to characterize the Democratic leadership as being unlistening and unfeeling.
John, we thank you so much for the time. John Olson joining us there from Gibson, Dunn Crutcher. Now,